So I have a small amount of time in between my opiate stuff where I can come to you clearly and fully conscious, but yet not in a lot of pain as well. So there's a little window of opportunity. I thought I would take that window and use it for perhaps the most important video I've ever uploaded to my channel. I've stayed out of politics, stayed out of the trans rights people and autogynephile stuff for the most part. I tried to stay out of everything because honestly, I don't like to talk about things I don't know a lot about. And I'm not super political, and it's not something I've ever been that much of an activist on, so I just kind of stayed away from it. But now that I've gone through transitioning and I've lived my life, and I've thought about this for so long and in so many different ways, and I've transitioned, I've detransitioned, I've talked to 4 gender therapists, I've talked to hundreds of trans people, I've talked to many detrans people, I've read several hundred posts on our detrans. I'd say I am extremely qualified at this point, more so than any gender therapist, more so than any doctor in this field. I am qualified to talk about this. I know that because I've talked to many gender therapists and many doctors in this field, and they know less than I do. That is very clear when I talk to them. For instance, 4 out of 4 gender therapists had no clue what autogynephilia was. They had never heard the term. All 4 of them. And that's just the term. It's one thing to not know the term. They don't know anything about anything. So my point is, I've come to the conclusion that I know enough to speak on it. So I'm going to. I know there's a lot of disclaimers here, and I'm sorry about that, but this is a precarious video, so indulge my disclaimers for a little bit. So I have a piece of paper here, and it goes through my early life, my teen life, as in high school life, my college life, when I began questioning my gender, which is around 24, 25. The sort of honeymoon phase of my transition, the re-questioning phase, the detransitioning phase, and then sort of where I am right now. The reason I'm doing it like this is so people can get a full picture of what I went through personally. And then also see where I'm coming from when I draw my conclusions. I think that's important. Is that the best way to do this? I'm not going to lie, I'm a little scared because I've never revealed a lot of this information. Because I was waiting for this video, which is sort of an impromptu video, but 3 minutes in and we haven't said anything, so. Sorry, I'm just now sort of trying to figure out if this is the best way to discuss this, or if I should perhaps it's going to get a long, okay, let's just breeze through it because it's going to take, I don't want it to be a long video. So early life, when I was 7, I was put into special education. Back then it wasn't as codified as it is now. They didn't give me some diagnosis. They just knew I didn't belong in the general population. It was, in my opinion, it was severe depression coupled with borderline personality disorder, coupled with familial abuse from my dad, physical and mental. So, for instance, my dad would hit me and give me a black eye or something, and then try to keep me home from school so that my teachers wouldn't see the black eye. I'm trying not to get emotional. This video is not about me getting emotional. It's about me giving information. So that was my early life. I just want to breeze through this so we can get to the point of the video. Teen life. Let's see. So this was high school, 14, 15, 16, 17. I cross-dressed to classes, often in my girlfriend's clothes. And despite the fact that they were my girlfriend's clothes and I had a girlfriend, I was bullied a lot for being gay, often by women, but also by men. What relevance that has, I don't know. I think it might have some. And then, of course, during this time, I was also receiving familial abuse from my mom and my dad. More so on the side of my mom was neglect. For instance, my dad once picked me up and sucker punched me in the stomach. Picked me up, lifted me, smashed my back into the wall, and sucker punched me. I forget why, but it wasn't for a good reason. And then my mom just sort of stood behind him, watching him, basically. Just not really doing much. So that was my high school life. College. So I was cross-dressing after college as well. Didn't do it so much in college just because I felt like it was a more professional setting and I didn't want to, I had a job in college, and I didn't, want that to be affected. So I took it a little more seriously than perhaps high school. I did sex work for a little bit. I'm not going to get into specifics on that, but I'll just say I did. By this point in my life, I had dated 7 or 8 people, and I would say 6 or 7 of the 8 people were narcissists. I guess this is just the type of person I was drawn to. They were all abusive in some way to me, mostly just neglectful, but sometimes outright abusive. And I had one, I would say I had one good girlfriend when I was 11. Otherwise, the rest of them were just someone I should never have talked to. That's how I see it now. Okay, so now I'm 25, 24, 25. And I began questioning my gender. And it started maybe at 24 as just like an inkling, just like a thought, not like a compulsion yet. And then it got worse and worse and worse. And eventually, and by the way, I should absolutely mention, I can't believe I didn't put this in there, I had been in therapy since I was maybe 8. 8 years old. Off and on, not very much as a kid, not very much as a teen. Throughout college and after college for sure. So I would say 10 solid years of therapy. None of it did anything. I took over 16 different psychiatric medications. And I was put in the psych ward twice. I don't know why I didn't write that down. I forgot that might be relevant. And I think that's perhaps the most relevant thing. So I had tried everything for my issues. So I'm 24, I began questioning my gender. I go to a gender therapist when I turn 25. And I am trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do with this. It's getting worse. It's keeping me up at night sometimes. It's obsessive. It's causing me a lot of distress. So I go to gender therapy thinking this is what you're supposed to do. I mean, that just makes sense. And I wasn't properly challenged in this due to how the world is at the moment. Very quickly, within a couple weeks, I was set up with a doctor who never informed me of any of the issues I'd end up experiencing. And if you want to know about those issues, they're on my channel. I documented them, but autoimmune condition, eye issues, gut issues, skin issues, vitiligo, basically all sorts of different autoimmune conditions, all stemming from me taking estrogen, I think. And a worsening of a pre-existing autoimmune condition, which was Hashimoto's. And so, yeah. And it was getting, especially these last few months, it still is getting pretty bad, and I'm hoping it can reverse, or at least stop. But it's bad, and it absolutely is. It absolutely coincides with starting hormone therapy. I mean, the doctors don't want to admit that. I've literally brought this up to my doctor, and she's flat out denied that it could have anything to do with this. I've looked up the medical studies. I have a couple of them on my channel that talk about how this is a common thing for people who are trans women specifically. This is not an uncommon thing. It's not unheard of by any means. And yet my doctor has outright just flatly denied it, probably due to legal reasons. So not only was I not told these would happen, but I was denied when I brought them up long ago that it could possibly be due to this, and I think that caused me to continue transitioning for longer than I would have. So now we get into the sort of honeymoon phase. The first 8 months, I don't question gender. I'm in the sort of honeymoon phase, as they call it, and I'm feeling slightly better about my gender, but my mental and physical health were getting worse by the month. Both of them were just declining as time went on. I've since taken down a lot of videos from that time because they're cringy, but also because they don't reflect my morals. And yeah, it's just kind of painful to look at them because I see the reality behind them and what I was feeling at the time, and it was mostly pain. Even though I tried to portray it as something else, it was mostly just pain. Sorry. So then I entered the re-questioning phase. Over a year of constant doubting and stuff. So I began seeing gender therapists again, none of which helped me at all. And by helped, I mean, you think, sorry, I'm trying to stop, but I can't. I might have to edit this. By helping me, I mean, you would think when you go to gender therapy, or any therapy, they would have you get in touch with reality. Because otherwise they're just feeding into your mental illness. They're worsening the reason you're there. And And so when I say they haven't helped me at all, all three of them, I should say all four of them, because I saw one at the beginning, and then three different ones throughout, trying to find someone who could actually help. And yeah, none of them actually gave me anything that would get me back in touch with what the science showed, what reality is. They just sort of let me dance around in my delusion and thought that was me, that was allowing them to explore, that was them allowing me to explore my identity. In reality, it was just allowing me to sort of dance around in delusion. And they just sort of watched. I tried detransitioning 10 times. So, yeah. Around 10. I mean, it could have been 8, it could have been 12. I lost count, but it was a lot. And sometimes it only lasted a few days, sometimes it lasted a few weeks. I'm currently up to a month. And I said when I made it to a month, I would make this video. So, yeah. So, here I am. And I guess I can finally admit that I regret this. And not only do I regret having done this, and it's going to affect me for the rest of my life, perhaps even severely. Not just because of my autoimmune condition, but because I have boobs, I might be infertile, I have no idea. But also mentally. So not only do I regret it, but it did nothing except harm me. It was 2 years that I was attempting to improve my life, and it ended up just being self-harm. Sorry, my voice goes all funny when I get upset, so I tried to keep it together, but it's kind of hard for me. So 4 gender therapists, and none of them were as educated on the topic of transitioning as I was. Not scientifically and not even sociologically. They hadn't researched anything near as much as I had in terms of the science, or even just in terms of talking to trans people. And that was evident by talking to them. I think I asked all of them at one point or another if they knew what autogynephilia was. And all 4 of them said no. All 4 of them had never heard the term before in their lives. And then I asked them if they knew who Ray Blanchard was, and they said no. Now, I don't care what your views on those topics are, but if you don't even know that they exist, you clearly have no education whatsoever on the topic of trans medicine, because they're there. They are one perspective on the sort of reasoning behind transition. And whether or not you agree with it, you have to at least know it exists, to know about all the potential perspectives. And not only that, but I brought up other medical studies that I had personally read that my doctors didn't know about, literally my endocrinologists. They didn't know about them. My therapists, they didn't know about them. So who is reading the medical science? Me. Like, I was the most informed person throughout this whole 2 years. And Well, so here I am. So I've sort of figured it out for myself after harming myself for 2 years. There's no recourse for me. There's no legal recourse. There's no real medical recourse either. I just have to hope the damage isn't too permanent. Just looking at this. I guess to sum it all up, to wrap it all up, and I don't mean to belittle myself or be too judgmental to myself, but I have mental illness. You know, I'm in some cases I don't know. It's hard to say what I actually mean by that. But I'm certainly not neurotypical. And, you know, especially looking at my early life and the abuse and the abusive relationships and the fact that I was cross-dressing to school and stuff and being made fun of for being gay and stuff, and not that I was, just the fact that people were sort of they were basically displaying that what I was not acceptable in this society. It's very clear to me, at least, looking at all of this early life and teen life and college life stuff, that I wasn't, I don't know how to phrase this. How do I phrase this? I shouldn't have been allowed to transition, I guess is what I'm saying. And I know that gets into some weird ethical dilemmas, but when you take everything I just said into account, which a therapist should have done beforehand, and they didn't take any of it into account. I should not have been allowed to. As upset as I would have been, I at least would have been fertile, and I wouldn't have permanent issues and a worsening autoimmune condition because of it. So yeah, I may have been upset. I may have hated the doctors or even the therapists. But they didn't do that, either because they were too afraid, because of potential backlash, because of the zeitgeist that is pushing transitioning, affirming transitioning, or they were so brainwashed that they thought that perhaps someone like me should transition. I'm not sure, but I don't know, from just sort of looking at it now here, all laid out. I shouldn't have been allowed to. Like, some people transition who should have they would have been allowed to, but there should have been more research into their past to deal with the issues they already dealt with beforehand. But for me, with all of this, 10 plus years of therapy, psych wards, sex work, cross-dressing, to classes and stuff, bullying, abuse from family members and all this, the questioning and the 3 gender therapists, and it's not like I hid anything. I didn't even hide anything. These people just did not do their job. I didn't hide anything. I was pretty open the whole time. They just didn't do their job. And it's an important job when you're talking about chemical castration and lifelong hormones and surgery. That's an important job. 4 out of 4 failed. All of them failed. But yeah, I just don't see how someone like this, like me, is allowed to transition without extensive therapy from a very, very intelligent doctor, psychologist, who understands the full picture and then can still make, a good decision. I don't see how that happened, or even that it happened at all. I get it, I'm an adult, but that doesn't mean anything. When I tried to harm myself in the past, they sent me to psych wards. But if you try and harm yourself through transitioning, they send you to endocrinologists to help you. So it's very clear that this was just self-harm facilitated by doctors and gender therapists. And it wouldn't have taken much to help me. They just really, when I say these gender therapists didn't help at all, they really did not help. When I'm now looking back, I was being very open. I was telling them that I didn't even necessarily want to transition. I just felt like I had to. And I still do, because they haven't helped me. But I know that it's not a solution, so. It's a long video. And I've been talking in this sort of weird, breathy, high-pitched voice the whole time. My throat hurts from talking like this, so I'm going to stop. Get some water. But, yeah, I'm sorry if it made this unwatchable, but I just thought I would get my genuine experience out. Thanks for watching.